This conference is about you. This conference is about us. This conference is not called the America's Counter-Cartel Conference. It's the America's Counter-Cartel Conference. This is about what we together can do. You know, it's been more than 200 years since our nation struggled for independence from foreign rule. The War of 1812 was about the United States defending its independence and protecting its territory. A 47-year-old Carolinian who was a major general in the Army, as was mentioned, Andrew Jackson, defeated a British army almost double the size. Addressing his troops after victory at the Battle of New Orleans, Jackson declared, "Natives of different states acting together for the first time have reaped the fruits of an honorable union." His success galvanized a young country. In 1816, our country elected a Revolutionary War hero as president. James Monroe fought in the Continental Army, leading a charge against German mercenaries fighting for the British. The enemy fired a musket ball at him. It severed his artery and he almost died. But the young captain rallied and grew to be governor of Virginia, Secretary of War, and one of our greatest presidents. In 1823, President Monroe said that the United States owed the success of that young country to the candor and amicable relations with other powers to affirm our national policy. President Monroe declared, "We should consider any attempt on malign countries to extend their system to any portion of this hemisphere as dangerous to our peace and safety." It was the Monroe Doctrine of 1823. And today, some 200 years later, we still marvel at the wisdom of President Monroe's declaration. We, like you, want borders and sovereign territories that are secure. We want unfettered access to key terrain and trade so that our nations can industrialize. And we want to prevent external powers from threatening our peace and independence in our shared neighborhood. This is the essence of the Monroe Doctrine. No external power will interfere in this hemisphere. Ours should be a region of strong, sovereign nations. It's the same principle that animates President Trump's defense approach today. President Trump and his Department of War are ushering in a new era of homeland and hemispheric defense, rooted in the unique heritage of our nation and your nations. Under President Trump, we restored the Department of War. You see, the Department of War was established by General George Washington and served our nation from its founding through our hard-fought victory in World War II. Many of your countries also once had ministries of war. Under President Trump, our nation has a newfound resolve that our founders would recognize, as Stephen alluded to and spoke to. They would recognize it, and they would appreciate it. We are at long last putting America, Americans, and the Americas first, ensuring peace through strength and restoring common sense. At our department, we're doing it by restoring the warrior ethos, rebuilding our military to historic levels, and reestablishing deterrence in this hemisphere and around the world. For too long, leaders in Washington and their foreign policy functionaries abandoned the simple wisdom of the Monroe Doctrine. They were consumed with the United States only going abroad. They ignored the warnings of President John Quincy Adams, who said that if our nation went overseas only in search of monsters to destroy, that we would cease to be the ruler of our own spirit and our own backyard. Under previous leaders, we grew obsessed with every other theater and every other border in the world except our own. These elites reduced our power and presence in this hemisphere, opting for a benign neglect that was anything but benign. In your countries, many leaders accepted the status quo to coexist with narco-terrorism, or for a law enforcement alone approach that failed to deter and dismantle threats. Same happened in our country under the previous administration. And the result of this collective neglect was fatal. More than 1 million Americans were killed by fentanyl, cocaine, and other drugs. Numbers greater than any casualties we've sustained in war. Millions of illegal aliens invaded our borders and destabilized nations across the hemisphere. Under Joe Biden's administration, the human smuggling industry exploded by more than 2,000%, from a $500 million so-called industry in 2018 to $13 billion by 2022. Cartels of terrorists across our hemisphere, enabled by adversaries, created and profited from chaos. What creates chaos? No leadership creates chaos. In our nation, narco-terrorist groups like Tren de Aragua prospered. They raped, they poisoned, they murdered innocent Americans. They terrorized our cities, our towns, and our neighborhoods like they do yours. Across this region, these gangsters control and terrorize large swaths of your territories, kill thousands of your people, and promote chaos that makes normal life sometimes almost impossible. Crime has spiked massively. Our hemisphere has 1/8 of the population, yet 1/3 of the violent crime. There's a reason for that. America's retreat from protecting its citizens and the complacency of many neighbors in this hemisphere was a great betrayal. That's what it was, a great betrayal against our people and our nations. Well, President Trump recognizes the wisdom of the Monroe Doctrine, and the days of us betraying and endangering our own citizens are finished. President Trump has reestablished the Monroe Doctrine, the Trump corollary of the Monroe Doctrine, or if you'd like, for short, you can just call it the Donroe Doctrine. Under President Trump, securing America's interest in the Western Hemisphere and keeping our homeland safe are our top national security priorities. The President's historic national defense strategy ensures that the Department of War will prioritize resources around the threats and objectives that are core to homeland defense and the people and prosperity of the American people. And to start, the Department of War is once again defending our borders as a priority of our national defense. With our law enforcement partners, we are defending our borders and making our streets safe again. Crossings at our southern border, at the U.S.-Mexico border, have dropped to the lowest number in history. Murders nationwide have plummeted by more than 20%. We now have operational control of our southern border. 0 people are crossing our southern border. We will not rest until we have complete operational control of every inch of all of our borders. So it starts with us. We're addressing it, but we're not stopping there. Under President Trump, for the first time in history, the Department of War is on the offense against narco-terrorists as well. I should back up a step, though. In order to get 100% operational control of our border, we didn't just look at Border Patrol and say, that's your job. It's a law enforcement function. We deployed the United States military. Right now, the Division Command of the 101st Airborne is in operational control of the southern border. We ensured that the most capable assets we had in our country were deployed to our own border to defend that border against the narco-terrorists and drug dealers seeking to enter our country, not treating it simply as a law enforcement function, working with our partners, but recognizing it's a core military function. But going on offense with Operation Southern Spear has restored deterrence against the narco-terrorist cartels that profited from poisoning Americans. Last month, we went a few weeks without targeting a single boat. Why? Well, because we couldn't find a whole lot of boats to sink. And that's the whole point, is to establish deterrence from narco-terrorists who have been able to traffic almost unfettered. And if the consequence was simply to be arrested and then released, well, that's a consequence they'd already priced in a long time ago.